Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Driving Growth Through Innovation Management, Insights and Strategies. My name is Carolina Sampaio Diniz. I'm Innovation Lead in EIT Health in Ostars, and I'm delighted to be here as your host, along with my colleague Juliana Alves from Health Cluster Portugal. Today, we're here to explore how innovation management can drive growth in healthcare organizations. We've gathered an incredible lineup of experts who are at the forefront of healthcare digitalization, value-based healthcare, and health transformation. Here's how the session will unfold. Each speaker will have 15 minutes to present on their chosen topic. After that, we'll have a 15-minute panel discussion to dive deeper into some of the key challenges and opportunities in health innovation. We'll then open the floor to audience questions, so please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A tool throughout the event. Thank you all for joining us today. Juliana? Juliana, you're muted. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. I was here thanking to the audience for attending. And before we move on to the presentations, I would like to leave just a few notes. I want to let you know that the presentations will be available to those who request them by filling in the survey that will be shared after the webinar. And also to let you know that the recording of this webinar will be available on the Health Class Portugal YouTube channel. Additionally, I want just to remember what Carolina was saying, that you can use, whenever you have a question for the speakers, you can use the Q&A tool to register them whenever you have have questions for the speakers. After the presentations and before the panel discussion, there will be a Q&A session. And I hand it over to our first speaker, Susana Vaz Ferreira, I would like to ask you to complete a brief quiz. We will give you now the time for that. It will just take 2 or 3 minutes, and please find the link for the quiz in the chat. We will do this quiz now, or we will ask you to do this, to fill this questionnaire now and at the end of the webinar. And it aims to assess the effectiveness of this session and to obtain feedback for improving future sessions. So we will give you now 2 minutes to complete this quiz. I think that now the 2 minutes have passed. I want to thank you all for collaborating with us in filling out this quiz. And moving now to the first presentation, which will be delivered by Susana Vaz Ferreira. Susana has extensive experience in healthcare management, focused on leadership and innovation in digital health. Today, she will be discussing leadership and innovation management in the age of health digitalization. Susana, welcome and thank you for being here with us. And please, you can start whenever you want.
Thank you so much for the invitation, first of all, and thank you for the presence of people that are here to listen to me. My name is Susana Vaz Freitas, and I'm a speech and language pathologist and a member of the Digital Health Lab of Hospital de Sant António in Oporto. For some reason, my title doesn't appear in here, but you just told the title, so I will start the presentation. Are you already seeing it?
Not yet. Now we are.
You are? So leadership and innovation management in the age of health digitalization. As I told you, I work in the Hospital of Sant Antonio, and to stress that this is the most old hospital in Oporto, in the city of Oporto, which is a city in the north of Portugal, that has more than 225 years, and where all the Oporto medicine was born, and also this hospital and this local health institution is the second biggest employer of the city, of the entire city of Oporto. We are a public hospital, a public company that is driven by the principles of responsibility and compliance with the best practice based on law, ethics, and also sustainability. Saying this, we are, because of your invitation, drove to the thinking of where do we start planning and thinking about digitalization, and how do we work to have a purpose of leadership with a digital background. So we did that, thinking of three main things. In one, first we tried to do an identity boost of all our collaborators, making them to feel aggregated to the hospital and to the institution. We also created a brand, a logo, and a form, a way of working oriented by a cultural change in our collaborators and all the people that work with and in our institution. So with that, we also try to promote this digitalization, doing the think tanks and roundtables and working groups with protected time on our clinical job to reflect about priority projects and also problems that we have inside our walls. And for our institution and with our collaborators, we based these discussions to come up with ideas to implement and to develop new aspects of promoting health and caring for the health of people that come to be treated with us. One of the specific things that we are doing is the Friday group. The Friday group is in the afternoon of each Friday, that gathers a group of people from different backgrounds, clinical and non-clinical, in a relaxed and very trust and loyalty environment, so that this group comes up with new ideas to improve the conditions, the work conditions, and the experience that our people, our workers, and also our patients have when they come to the hospital and to the different hospitals that are part of our institution. We also try to make some, wherever possible, some collection of impressions and ideas from our partners inside of the company and also other hospitals. And also we try to plan and implement actions, concrete and very applicable and efficacy actions step by step. So what kind of examples do I have to show you? We try to develop a group of tools that provide a better experience for our workers and also our patients. Specifically for our patients, we developed an app which is called Sant Antonio app, which has nowadays more than 85,000 users, that promotes digital literacy and also digital servers for the ones that use them. In that, our patients, our users, they respond. They are able to see the appointments that they have, the time that those appointments are made to happen, to ask for reports, to interact with the professionals that take care of their health, to see and collect data, for example, of analysis or some kind of lab tests or X-rays or other type of tests. And this kind of instrument or this kind of application makes the users with a better way of managing their own health that is being accompanied by our hospital. Another app or another instrument, digital instrument that we have, it's called VoiceBot. So it's a phone service where our users, our external and internal users, could call to the hospital and be their doubts and necessities answered using a voice bot that responds to the phone calls and orients the patient or the professionals in a level of efficacy, a very high level of efficacy, which was already tested, and we had less than 20% of phone calls that weren't solution driven. So it's a very high percentage of cases that when calling to the hospital, the call is always answered, and a big amount of phone calls are resolved only using the phone call. So many patients that don't need to come to the hospital, it also reduces the physical jobs dedicated to the telephone service. So that enhances also teleworking. We are able to promote a more balanced work-life time in our collaborators. So it's a very sustainable and efficacy decision that we took in our hospital using digitalization. Another thing is the creation of the digital health laboratory, which I'm part of. This laboratory is composed by a team of different workers of the clinical area with protected time during their week for dedication to the digital health laboratory, and they promote the development and implementation of remote services and other opportunities using digitalization inside of the hospital, in a way to avoid trips also to the historic center of Oporto, which is now chaotic. And also we try to replicate other projects that are being developed by the National Health Service in a more quickly, efficiently, and with lower costs. It also promotes teleworking and again promotes the work life at home balance and the quality of life of the workers. Another thing also for the professionals of the hospital is the Sant Antonio app for the collaborators, which is also a tool that makes more easily to reserve the meals at our canteen by the employees. It's also a possibility to take away the meals, and we were able to realize that it was a very use platform to that possibility. It also is trying to fight the waste, fighting the waste, the food waste, which is a problem, and aims to also promote a better reconciliation of professional and family life, because people reduce their time doing the meals and thinking of that, which can also be this very, very heavy in the day-by-day life. Another tool is the use of robots in the robotic surgery in the operating room with mixed reality. This is a very interesting and an excellent way of reducing CO2 consumption, for example. There's less necessity to come to the hospital because the robotic surgery can be done with the surgeon in another place, even in another continent. And that allows also distant teaching and training using the remote collaborative work of telesurgery. It improves also the quality of life of the professionals, better ergonomics, because there's no need to be in a little room with a lot of people, not always in the best position. And also a very important thing is that we were able to retain talents, especially regarding the medical doctors that maintain their work in the hospital using this kind of edge technology. And we are also not only thinking about tools and digitalization, but also trying to think of all of this having a greater purpose, like the climate sustainability. So with this implementation of telehealth, digital service, home care projects, we are able to join the Oporto Climate Pact and be driven by a more green and sustainable society because of the production that is associated with our hospital services. We also try to raise awareness in our community, in our patients and in our collaborators for the use of these digitalization services, namely the app, that prevents a lot of dislocations and the metrics that are associated with the assessment or the evaluation of the CO2 emissions with this digital interaction show that it's a very, very good instrument and tool to achieve that. We also tend to implement in our hospital some circular economy measures, namely because of the reuse of some personal protective equipment For example, our goans that in the end of their useful life, we ask to be processed and to be crushed, and the waste that comes from their crushing can be recovered and be used to other purposes. And also, one of the things that we are doing in terms of green sustainability is the adherence to the global green and healthy hospitals that we are part, and we are very honored to be part of this global network and project that gathers hospitals from around the world. And last but not least, we also try to be aware of this kind of projects and recognize the merit, and also encourage to share these projects that are successful with everyone, so that it can be a way of motivating others to do also this kind of projects, and to realize that a way of being part of the institution is to be proud of what we do and how we do it. So we achieved in 2022 the first prize in the Sustainable Health Award, and we also are recognized for doing apps, namely the Walking Pad app, which is to identify and reduce the pain associated to a specific type of disease relating to the blood that comes to our limbs, inferior limbs, and this walking pad prescribes walkings and makes a distance monitoring of the patients that use it, reducing the problems and the comorbidities associated with this disease in our patients that used it in the last year in a very, very important way. And it was all that I have to say to you. Thanks for your attention, and I hope for any question. Thank you. Juliana, you are without in mute.
And again, I was thanking you, Susanna, for presenting us all these tools and their impact in the health professionals, in patients' lives, and also in the health system and even in the world. I remember the audience that can leave the questions for Susanna using the Q&A tool. We now will move to our next speaker of today, Anne Gobel from Prologica. With over 25 years of experience in technology management, Anne has been a strong advocate for health-based healthcare. Today, she will be talking about the health data revolution in value-based healthcare, focusing on how data can drive better outcomes in healthcare. Anne, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Juliana. So I'm going to share my presentation. Yep. Okay. Okay, I think that everybody is seeing the presentation, yes? So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to discuss about health data revolution, and mainly how we can use data to drive better patient outcome in the future. So let's start by asking ourselves, what does it truly mean to have a healthcare system based on value? So what we know really is that traditionally, healthcare has measured success by volume, so by how many patients we treat, how many procedures we perform. But when we are speaking about value-based healthcare, this approach asks us to measure our success by the outcome we achieve, by the quality and the impact on the care we provide. So We have been working a lot, Prologica, on driving value from the data and using this model of value-based healthcare, because this model focuses on improving health outcome, enhancing patient satisfaction, and reducing, which is very important for the sustainability of the healthcare system, reducing unnecessary costs. So we have an approach that is built on three critical pillars that drive this transformation, in our opinion. First, data-driven insight. So we know that data is more accessible than ever, and we have now the opportunity to use this data to improve healthcare decisions. We can analyze patterns, we can identify trends that help us to optimize care pathway, that help us also to reduce inefficiencies and make treatments much more effective for the patient. So think about the power of understanding that what works best for a patient based on millions of previous cases. We need data-driven decision. This is the first pillar of the transformation. The second is, of course, a patient-centered approach. So we are discussing about patient-centered, but in reality, what we know is that today patients are more informed and involved in their health decisions. So this model of value-based healthcare empowers patients by focusing on their unique needs. We have the data about the patient, we can understand what are the needs of the patient, and we can identify the best treatment for the patient. This is a patient-centered approach. And the third pillar, which is very important, is that the value-based concept need a collaborative ecosystem. So we know that healthcare is a collective effort. And by fostering collaboration among hospitals, this approach will help all the healthcare providers to work together seamlessly, ensuring that patients receive coordinated and consistent care. So together, these three pillars, data-driven insight, patient-centered approach, and collaborative ecosystem, form the foundation of our vision of value-based healthcare. And we are going to explore now how this vision is already becoming a reality, and this is very important, and how it's transforming patient outcome, and why it is critical to the future of the healthcare system. So, as we say, healthcare has traditionally been reactive. We know that we have a very important lack for consistent outcome measurement in healthcare. We never measure really the outcome of the patient. But now we are in a transition phase because we know that healthcare costs are increasing significantly. We have a shift in demography, so we have more elder people, and we have an increasing demand of healthcare services. So we are moving toward a system that prioritizes personalized and preventive care using data. And what is the future? The future, and we are building a future where data-driven decisions lead to improve patient outcomes and a sustainable healthcare model. And that's what we have been, that's on what we have been working the last 2 years. How? So there is a very big consortium in Portugal, which is called Health from Portugal, and which is financed by the Recovery and Resilience Plan, funded by the European Community. And one of the areas addressed by this consortium is, of course, value-based healthcare. So the transformation that we need using the data to move to a system based on value. So the objective is really in this vertical of value-based healthcare, the objective is to create an ecosystem that supports value-based healthcare through partnership. And we have a lot of hospitals, and we will see in the next slide, the hospitals that are part of this consortium. And the objective is to develop a platform, a technological platform for collecting, analyzing clinical data, patient-reported outcome, and cost per clinical condition. So what we now have in the hospital, most of the time in the public hospital, we have different systems, and it is not so easy to see seamlessly the full patient pathway. So what we do with this technological solution is to reorganize all the data to allow for the doctors and the teams, the clinical teams, to see the patient pathway very seamlessly through the system. So this consortium include 5 major hospitals, of group of hospitals in Portugal. We have Hospital de Braga, São João, Coimbra, Santarém, Lesíria, and San Jose. So we have most of the very important hospitals in Portugal. And this solution, this technological platform, which is called Prisma, which has the objective and which results for a co-creation process with all the clinical teams of these hospitals in 2 different clinical conditions. So we choose to pilot the new solution in 2 clinical conditions, cataract surgery and surgical treatment for obesity. And the objective is to get feedback of all these teams in order to understand clearly what they need in the solution, to use it on a day-to-day basis, and to be sure that really it is fully integrated with the day-to-day practice, because it's very important that this not result in something that they need to enter in another application, to make some input in another application, and then they have to go out in another application. So we have to put this process very seamlessly. So what we did with all these clinical teams, we developed a digital solution for the management and delivery of value-based healthcare. Obviously, this solution is not only for value-based healthcare. This solution can be used, obviously, to make real-world data project, for example, because what this solution does is that it's fully integrated in the workflow of the hospital teams, and it collects automatically and organizes all the relevant information about the clinical condition and the patient. So you have the patient at the center, and then when you enter in the system of the hospital, you can, and you want to choose a patient, then you can enter directly in our solution, and you will see all the flow of the patient within the hospital, all the clinical historical of the patient, with all the results of the test, of the laboratory tests, imaging tests, and so on. And this application will also include forms that will allow the structuration of the data, because what we see is that most of the information that is very important to analyze the outcome of the patient is not structured information. Everything is in the diary, and this is not possible to use this information for investigation in the future. So what we do in this clinical condition is that we discuss the forms to collect outcome with the different clinical teams, and then we use international standard to collect all the information that is needed to evaluate the outcome, the clinical outcome of the patient during his treatment, but also the patient-reported outcome. So we promote the structured data, and we use international standard to record health outcome. The last thing that we do also, and this is very important and I think very disruptive, is that we also evaluate cost of the patient pathway. So for every patient that is treated and that is in our solution, we can effectively get the cost of the patient pathway within the clinical condition. And this is important because at the end, we are going to be able to compare within the clinical teams the cost of the patient pathway when compared to the outcome. So, for example, if you have a protocol that says that you must have 2 consultations 30 days after the surgery, perhaps you can see that the patient that had only 1 consultation did not have any impact on his outcome. So the objective really is to optimize the cost, but always looking at the outcome for the patient. And for that, you need both information. And only for that, you can measure the value for the patient. And what we did is that we pilot the solution in 2 clinical conditions, as I said, and one of the conditions is the bariatric surgery. And it is very interesting because we can get all the information from the system. We also discuss with the clinical teams what would be the best way to compare information. So all the dashboard that we have been producing to date are the result of the discussion that we had with the clinical teams, what they want to see. We also have the opportunity to develop a patient-like-me model. So just for the doctors, when they are looking at the evolution of their patient through the treatment, they can say, okay, this patient with this type of characteristic, I would say, I don't know, the age of the patient, the comorbidities of the patient. So comparing the same patient, we can see how the evolution of the patient we are looking at the moment is comparing to the other patient like him. And I think that is very important, this patient like me model. I was at a conference last week, the ISHOM conference, and this model of patient like me model is used effectively. And I think this is a very good idea. I'm sharing the information here to share the decision with the patient. So for example, if we are speaking about a treatment, so the doctor with the patient like me model, he can discuss with his patient the different treatment for a patient like him and showing the option of the patient that are the same as his and also the result of the treatment. And so they can both decide what will be the better solution. This is really something that can be used to share the decision in the future. So regarding the bariatric surgery pilot project, of course, it will take a little time to get the results because we can imagine that the treatment has a 2 or 3 year period. But I'm pretty sure that we will have better outcome in the future. And I also very confident that we will have also a better way to identify the best practices for the patients. So what do we want for the future of this solution, this platform that we have been developing in the consortium? First, of course, we would like to apply Prisma to diverse clinical areas. For the moment, we are speaking about cataract and obesity, but the idea will be to implement for chronic disease like diabetes or heart disease, and also oncology. And I should say that, okay, applying this platform to a lot of different conditions, we will have a very good information about what are the outcomes, what are the variation of the treatment in the patient outcome, what are the costs in the different hospitals, and we can surely establish a benchmarking that will help the clinical teams to identify the best practices and to eliminate the inefficiencies in the system. So this is our objective. The second objective, obviously, is to integrate artificial intelligence, of course, because it will give us the opportunity to predict the outcome of the patient depending on the risk assessment of the patient, for example. And also for me, the cost is very important. This will be very interesting in the future to say, okay, I have a patient here, she's 40 years old, the diagnosis is breast cancer. So, okay, this type of patient will cost X amount of euros in the future. So we can have a good evaluation of what will be the cost of health in the future. We must really use artificial intelligence to do it. And the third objective, of course, is to foster global collaboration. So global collaboration means that we must join forces with healthcare providers, with researchers, with innovators. We see Susanna because I think that she presented some cases that are very interesting. But we have to exchange knowledge. We have to compare outcome. We have to collectively refine best practices. This is very important. So the future of Prisma, the future of Value for Health is to expand to integrate artificial intelligence, and of course, to foster global collaboration. So I have a call to action to end. And my call to action is first to embrace the model of value-based healthcare, because by moving toward to this model, I'm sure that we will be able to improve quality, transparency, and accountability in the healthcare system. So my first call to action is to embrace value-based healthcare. My second call to action, of course, is to collaborate. We have to engage all the stakeholders to create really a connected healthcare ecosystem. So only by pooling our expertise, our resources, and data, we can collectively achieve what no single organization can accomplish alone. So second call to action, we need to collaborate. And I will always say, okay, innovate, because from the time we are going to have access to data, organized data, structured data by clinical condition, and we can really use this data to innovate, to develop new solutions that will, with these data, that will improve patient quality of life in the future. So thank you very much. And I hope that this call to action will have results in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for your presentation. I remind again the audience that you can leave questions for Anne in the Q&A tool. Our next speaker is Rui Ferreira, who is an experienced executive with a background as CEO, CFO, and corporate finance consultant, working with startups, SMEs, and tech transfer entities. His expertise includes venture capital, business financing, and strategic growth. As a former CEO of Portugal Venture and lecturer at ISCTE Business School, he brings strong leadership and deep knowledge of venture capital and business development. Thank you, Rui, for joining us, and you may share your presentation whenever you want.
Thank you, Juliana. I salute everybody, and it's really a pleasure that I'm here. Thank you for the invitation. I will share my presentation, and then please check if you are seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing it?
We are seeing, yes.
Okay, just to put in slide mode. So thank you very much for the invitation. I hope everybody's okay. I'm going to bring here subjects for the roundtable. That is the role of the startups in health transformation and innovation. It is related a lot with my former experience during more than 30 years in the ecosystem here in Portugal. And I'm going to bring exactly for discussion some examples, good examples, nothing else than the previous ones that I salute as well. They were very interesting cases from my previous speakers, and I would like, to address you some thoughts that around this theme, and mainly just to start making a few data here and sharing a few data with you. That Portugal, as many of you may know, presents a very strong ecosystem regarding in terms of collaboration with major stakeholders such as universities, R&D labs, pharmaceutical companies. Biotechnology, for instance, is the 15th technology area in the most patents in Portugal. Companies like Bial, it's responsible for more than 50% of new patents. A lot of universities have a strong role on this, and really good researchers doing this. New research centers like Champalimo Foundation, for instance, is not here referred, but it's a very interesting key role player in Portugal. So the index of generation of scientific knowledge is quite ahead here in Portugal. And also they involve lots of PhDs working a lot with very good and excellent recognition standards, not only nationally but internationally. Also, we know that the most of the publications, international scientific journals, they have, a good reference for the researchers in Portugal. And of course, the emergence of new collective dynamics. This is, an example, Digital Health, where we are today here in this webinar. And I also congratulate this initiative for that, because it's a collective dynamic, so that you can discuss this theme around the industry very closely. So they bring, the opportunities such as in the biotechnology field, and this particular one in the digital health field, so that you can discuss in which way we are, such as the medical device sector as well. It's another very interesting subsector of the healthcare industry here, that represents more than 1 billion for the national economy, and at European level already with more than 25,000 companies already established. And of course, they are increasing a lot during the last years. What in considering, the most relevant players in the biopharmaceutical in Portugal, I have here three examples. Bial, Blue Pharma, Ovion, they are well-known Portuguese companies with a very relevant dimension, in that they have already developed, certain research and development that is used along all over the world, involving drugs, very specialized drugs that are very interesting in the international context. And also companies like we have the Prologic presentation from Hen, that are really good references. But the main thing here is that, what about the startups? Okay, so if everybody knows what is the relevance of those companies in our ecosystem, as well as several research and universities institutions also playing a key role for the ecosystem's dynamization, what is the role of the startups? And I bring here, and this is related with my previous experience in Portugal Venture. I was directly involved in very many cases of companies from this healthcare vertical, that I'm bringing you here five examples that I would like to address you. The first one, in fact, it is a immuno-oncology research company that had a very specific role in regarding the nature of immunology, and it was sold when I stepped in Portugal Ventures to a very interesting international player. I will tell you so afterwards. Cellmabs, it's also a specialized company that developed an antibody-based therapy directly related to the cancer-specific target, and it showed an unprecedented binding capability and tumor selectivity. That's why it was, in the words of mouth for at least by the end of the last year, when it was also acquired by a huge international company here. Then another one, Tony Cap, which involved another digital. This is related with digital health now. It's a mobile platform created by doctors for doctors, that everything that a doctor needs and to treat patients in a single platform, there is, it's available in terms of quick information. So it has been also a very successful case here in Portugal. Tartex, another one that's implementing a novel approach to identify promising targets, and they are involving in a very specific disease called the glioblastoma, using, in their cases, perioperative hydrogel, so that they can deliver the drug directly to the site of action of this disease. And finally, another example, which is PicMed, which is a full automated planning and simulation system for orthopedic surgery, that aims to revolutionize the orthopedic surgery value chain through digitalization with artificial intelligence involved. So it means that is a very relevant example for this team of digital health PT. So I brought all these five examples so that you can be aware of the importance of the startups here that you have in Portugal and worldwide. And I share with you in this presentation a few facts related with these 5 companies. So they are the news that they are very relevant that I promised to share with you. The first one, the soul of the company to a very important gamma delta. It's a very important player in terms of the T gamma and delta cells in terms of preclinic phases. CellMabs, it was the highest exit route that we had until now in Portugal regarding this the sold to a very important company, BioNTech, involving also cancer therapies. It's a German quoted company in this case. TonyCap, that was responsible to make a fundraising more than 10 million. It happened in the last year as well. 10 million euros just to develop the more this platform and address it to more physicians and users worldwide. TargText, he was also known for this specificity, and he had attracted also a key player in the pharmaceutical industry, in this case a German one as well, to enhance the hydrogel solution for their drug delivery specialty and technology. And finally, PicMed, that was also responsible to fundraise more than 3 million in the last year as well to make their scaling up process. So all these 5 examples, and there are many others, I don't have time to share with you. Also good examples in our healthcare industry are good examples so that you can see the role that the startups have in health transformation and innovation in Portugal and worldwide. Now, examples of fields of action that many startups are working nowadays, and I give you here 3 examples. The first one in the field of the therapeutics. So there are many companies working in molecular therapies and drug delivery solutions like the ones I've told you, immunotherapies and vaccines. We must, be backward 2 years ago when everybody was looking for a vaccine for COVID, and the work together of many startups and pharma companies have the resulted to very efficient at least 3 vaccines worldwide, so that they helped a lot for us to control this global pandemic. So it's very important and relevant way of innovation, like stem cells, cell therapy, which is also very interesting topic for research, anti-aging and neurodegenerative diseases. So this is a very interesting trend that each in a maximum way, and what is the holy grail of all this, that every person has perhaps his own medicine just to extend his life, healthy life, for more than perhaps 100 years. That it's the many people is reaching the 3 digits aging at this moment. The oncology, which is the disease of the century, and there are lots of research that in terms of collaboration from startups with research centers, just to pick up very interesting solutions to overlap the most aggressive ones, and I know lots of them that are making a very interesting path on this way. Then on the digital health, which is related more with this theme that we are discussing here today, the diagnosis of every interaction that the physicians and the patients do, and the role of course of the artificial intelligence that must follow in this path, and the telemedicine solutions that to avoid the all constraints of a one-to-one consultation process with in the hospitals or clinics, the medical apps, and I gave you example already from Tony Cap, that have this specific orientation, so that they can have the most incredible sources of information, reliable sources of information, just to help a lot the work of the physicians in their work of diagnosis and treatment, and of course all the software that is supporting the planning and the process of the healthcare system, and all the methodology that is related indirectly with the other fields. Finally, the medtech, and of course there are lots of companies working with biomaterials, medical imaging, and medical devices, of course facing high standards of legal framework, but even so, they have, accomplished very interesting results worldwide, so that they can provide to the industry solutions that can help also these all ecosystems to work together. So what I meant is that the future role for startups in healthcare industry is very relevant in order not only to prepare the future and to have a specific in an environment of strictly regulated business landscape, because it's unavoidable that this vertical had to face, several regulation had it. So it means that many companies, even with a strictly regulated business, they need to discover sources of significant new value creation, and they are doing that worldwide. Data-driven technologies and artificial intelligence as well, they are providing organizations and companies with valuable information, automation that avoids those regular tasks, and that help a lot and reduce significantly the research and development process. At least I know a few of them that are working so that you can reduce the whole process of research, etc., for investors too long. And exactly regarding with investors, the mindset of private equity and venture capital players and business angels, they are looking at this sector with more and more attention, and also it's a kind of a race against the funding gap that is traditional to this industry, exactly related with this avoidable fact that the process is usually long. An investor that invests in a company like this usually has got already its return many years ahead. So it's usual that in a portfolio for a venture capital, that companies like this, they stay for more than 7 years, almost 10 years, and some 15 years. But pay attention. CellMaps, for instance, that I was responsible for its investment in 2019, and is this investment in 2023. So it took 4 years, only 4 years in our portfolio. Is there any secret source on this? Easy, because they start to work very soon in a very early stage in the exit route. So it's a good example. What do startups in healthcare industry need to be more important for this health transformation innovation? So I resume here in a few topics. First of all, the international network, exposure to investors and corporate community. It means that these companies alone, they don't survive easily, so we need to give them all the conditions involving all the players in the ecosystem, so that they can survive and be and have more capability to endorse their work, and to be more easy to attract, for instance, investors, such as the mentorship, the coaching, and training programs for founders. This sector is very common, this sector, to have scientists as CEOs or in the C-level. Nothing wrong with that, but the problem is that they need also some training and capabilities in management sides. So many of the companies, they didn't work because this was pending a lot for the scientific part of the process, and less to the management part of the process. Again, coming back to the CellMaps example, that it took only 4 years to make an excellent return on this case, it meant that one of the persons that was founder, he was not a scientist, he was a management guy. So it helped a lot to have this approach. Another thing is that the early support in regulatory issues and market validation is absolutely necessary so that we can avoid, more costs ahead, and that an investor that puts money in a company like this has always a milestone-driven way to put money. It means that I only put an euro or a bunch of euros in the company if they reach certain milestones, and many of them are related with regulatory issues or milestones, or to have the certainty that they achieve a level that there is no turning point, at least to develop, for instance, a certain solution for the market that is really feasible. Okay. Another thing is the engagement in strategic aspects of activity of the companies. For instance, I have shared many cases that in the middle of the way of the investment, they had to move for a plan B because the plan A didn't work, and they knew that, the founders team knew that, with some advantage, so that they can, with the investors, to take some decisions with time, so that, and avoiding more money to be invested as lump sum, because it's very common to happen this in this industry. So they could, develop a plan B or plan C that showed to be more profitable than the plan A itself. Then getting the first strategic customers through IP licensing models. This is another way to avoid that distance between the investment period and this investment period that is needed for the investors to go for a pre-licensing model, which means that since the very first time of the investment, we start to think, how can I pre-licensing the intellectual property to third parties? So it's a very interesting model to be developed by startups that are starting their activity without any expectation when they are ready to go to the market or to sell their products to a existing pharmaceutical. Then recruiting as well key persons and seasoned team members that can be very important to overlap certain phases of the process, or not only through the research and development, but also for the commercialization or pre-licensing models that I was talking about. So it's important to have the right team at the right moment to achieve those milestones. Business plan review, as I told, and adjustments to investors' expectation regarding the risk exposure and return. This is always the balance that investor does investing in these startups. So I want to have the maximum return as possible with the minimum risk. And the risk exposure is simple, is to lose all my money that I put there in the company. And the problem in this sector, independently of the kind, if it is digital health or it is in therapeutics or in the medical devices, usually there are necessary new rounds and subsequent rounds of funding without having any revenue in the companies. It means that the value of the companies is directly related with the research and the development process, and those milestones that if are achieved or not, so that the investor can have more value related with those milestones achieved. And of course, it is very helpful so that the investors can do their return more easily. And finally, proactive sourcing and management for merger and acquisition solutions, for instance, to getting exit routes for early investors. The problem is that the startups, they suffer usually because they don't have, the right means to, and the strategical, in terms of if they accomplish the rest, they have the strategical path, they have the right institutions as partners, they have everything, but they don't have enough money to go through all this R&D process. So they die in the middle of the process, or they will need money. And it's very important so that they can, in strategical way, to prepare with very, very, in advance, with many months in advance, a new round of funding. It's not like this that we can do funding for these companies. So it's very important to have a strategy ahead of this. So in a nutshell, it was this that I would like to share with you, not to take more time. So in resume, I'm very, very confident that the startups will keep to have a strategic role to develop the health transformation innovation worldwide. And of course, in Portugal, we are a few steps ahead of this program. Now we must, improve a bit better, what is the way, how can we finance all this ecosystem? But we are doing many progress on that. So at the end, I'm available for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Rui, for your presentation. We are now moving to the last presentation of this webinar. Unfortunately, Philippe, that is our last speaker, was not able to join us at last minute. However, he has recorded an exclusive presentation for our webinar, and we will try to share the recording so we can still benefit from his insights. And let's see if we are successful in sharing this presentation.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to share. Can you see?
Carolina, we can see it. It seems a little bit better now. Yeah, we can see
Hello,
it.
Carolina. Hello, Juliana.
Can
Thank
you
you
listen?
for the
We are listening.
invitation. It's a huge privilege to be here with this amazing panel to talk about a subject that for me is such an important thing concerning its implementation and also its research, which is called value-based healthcare. And today I'm going to talk to you about not only the full implementation of value-based healthcare, but why we need to reach its full potential when we are integrating this and looking for a sustainable need. So we cannot build a house with bricks and walls that doesn't have a good place for we can build this house. So it's mandatory the approach that we need to have when we are building this house. And sometimes we have a lot of problems and a lot of challenges when we are building these amazing concepts and when we are putting in practice. Yes, a lot of theory has been brought concerning the concept of value-based healthcare, but we need to be careful about this fad or fabulous concept when we are doing this. First of all, do we know where we are going in healthcare? So today I'm going to try to bring you a glimpse of the things that are happening in our days in healthcare. Because yes, we have a lot of challenges when we are talking about value-based healthcare. And one of the first thing is that if we don't do anything, what are the real challenges that we already have? Yes, we have an aging population. We have an increase on the life expectancy in healthcare, which is normal due to new technologies, new devices, new drugs, and new ways of delivering healthcare. So we have a natural exponential increase of prevalence of chronic diseases and multimorbidity, and a complexity of delivering care which is exponential, that is related, of course, with the rising costs, an escalation of health spending and consequent pressure on all stakeholders concerning efficiency, lowering price, but concerns about risks. And of course, the more need that the patient have will create more expectancies about their results and about the outcomes that need to be measured, because we have a system that is typically focused on volume, not value. And of course, we have new technology advances, new drugs, new devices that are brought to healthcare, and we need to be careful about even its regulation and the way that we are delivering care. So the question is, what is the value of the gesture produces along the chain of care for a given clinical condition? Are we measuring the vertical alignment of all the stakeholders when we have a full chain of value when we are delivering healthcare? So the word value is bringing more problems than solutions, because value is brought by an economical approach, but now in healthcare it has a shift position concerning what is the better outcomes to deliver at the correct costs, and not only a transaction of costs to deliver a better margin. Another very busy word and problematic word is the word quality, because we have been putting everything on this concept and not be defining specifically what we are getting or what we are talking about this word about quality. But we have a biggest problem. We have a bigger problem called sustainability. Yes, as you're going to see, we have a huge problem concerning that. So typically we heard that new drugs, new devices, new technology are a cost. And the big problem of expenditure in healthcare is concerning the innovation. Yeah, but the thing is it a cost? Is it an investment? And the difference between cost and investment is that on the investment, we have a positive return concerning what's the results that we are producing for healthcare. So let me talk you about a story. Once upon a time, there was an emergency shift in the paradigm of evolution of an economical pressure models. This society was pressure on costs, reduction on healthcare expenditure with no instruments to analyze the need for decision making. And then the ecosystem was unbalanced with the progressive variability of the behavior to deliver best outcomes for the patient. So we are bringing a war for retail and consumer perspective. And at the end, they are the patients that are not well treated. But not only the patients, the clinicians also have a problem. And also the administrators also have a problem. So we are all living happily under construction. And Soshiro Honda once said, vision without action is a daydream, action without vision is a nightmare. So let's see what's happening in healthcare. If we look to the healthcare spending concerning GDP, the world is already on healthcare spending 10 out of the 10% of the global GDP. But what is happening all around Europe? Around Europe, 10.9. And in Portugal, 10.4 with 23,000 million euros of health expenditure. If you look to the second graph on my right side, you can see 50% of these rising costs are in secondary approach that we are spending. So we have to be careful because the curves are not flattened. The curves are exponential on the way that they are growing. And that's a concern that we need to be careful. Yes, Portugal has a life expectancy of 81.5 years. But do we know that in the last 5 years of living, we have one of the worst outcomes in all over Europe that we are measuring. Secondly, we are asking for the population to have more and more an out-of-pocket when we are spending the healthcare and that kind of rising costs. So are we having already a financing system based on taxes? Let's look at what's happening also. Yes, the problem is that we no longer have a system that is full paid by taxes, because 56% of the pharmaceutical ambulatory drugs are already paid out of pocket by our patients. Besides that, if we look to the ratio of number of nurses and doctors all over Europe, we have one of the worst average on Europe. So we need to be careful about how we are using these resources, because it's not because we are not producing enough nurses, it's because we are exporting this kind of actives. And besides that, besides our taxes, besides our out of payment, we are already asking more than 30% of our population to have a double coverage by, for example, health insurances, where we are asking huge prices to deliver the same system. And we have a lot of challenges concerning the new kind of pathologies that we are going to have. We'll have an increase in oncological diseases. We'll have an increase of cardiometabolic diseases. We'll have an increase of psychological diseases, and we'll have problems, of course, of respiratory diseases. So this is a natural cause, but one of the biggest problems is called variation, and it's called a problem of spending more that we are producing on the richness. It's not only a problem in Portugal, it's a problem all over the world. Why? Because one of the biggest things is that we have a lot of variation on outcomes, and that variation on outcomes are producing this variation on costs. Because this was supposed to be a straight line concerning the huge amount of protocols that we have in clinical guidelines, but the truth is our average compliance is below 50%, and this is taking on variance more than 19 billion a year on their care spending and variance. One of the biggest problems is because healthcare and variance is based on perception to decision making. We don't have enough information to take decision based on evidence. And then we all ended up in a stakeholders force an opposite reduction of this cost reduction. Yes, because we at the moment don't have an alignment concerning all stakeholders, and this is a problem concerning the huge rivalry that we are creating to the same objectives. So we know at the moment that we have a diminishing health return on an unsustainable cost growth. We have an unwanted practice variation. We have a growing disconnection between research and clinical practice, and we have a poor access to standardized data for clinical practice, and an imbalance in between research and development expenditure. Besides that, we are creating even more problems concerning having resistance to change and a huge vested interest that we need to be careful. So I always bring my dear friend Einstein, that is saying the principle of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So how can you do this? Yes, Value-based healthcare is bringing a lot of new opportunities, and this concept has brought a new perspective how healthcare should be organized. Of course, theoretically, this was an amazing thing, but the truth is when we implement this model of better outcomes for the patient at the correct cost for the full cycle of a clinical condition, we have some struggles on their basic theory of implementation. Yet, it's fantastic on the approach, it's fantastic on the conceptualization, but we have to be careful when we have this kind of holy grail implementation. So value-based healthcare is defined as outcomes, better outcomes that matters to patient to the correct cost to deliver these outcomes. This is how we define value in healthcare. But the concept is not new. The concept was built in 1985, not in 2006 when it was brought to healthcare. So the concept of the value chain was built in 1985 by Michael Porter. So when the $1 million question is now, how do we start? How do we start doing this thing? First of all, we need to work on real world evidence. We cannot work on theoretical approaches. So we need to know how we are going to work with the actual evidence that we are producing. But first of all, I always like to bring the word for the biggest strategical professor that I have, which is called Michael Porter, where he said that strategy is as much about decision what to do as it's about the decision what not to do. And this is something important because the correct strategy that we need to have concerning the implementation of value-based care is about ensuring that the patient receives the right care at the right time, in the right place, at the right area of cost to achieve the right value, in the right ecosystem with all stakeholders aligned. And for that, it's important to deliver a model.
I'm sorry, this is failing, I guess. I'll just stop sharing so I can see you. Do you hear me? I'm sorry
Yes.
about this. Well, this not a misunderstanding, but Philippe has unexpected flights with a lot of delay, so he couldn't be here. But we will share the presentations after with you, and maybe it's easier for you to catch up what's missing on his insights. Moving forward, I can see that there are no questions from our participants. So thank you to all our speakers for those insightful presentations. Now let's move into our panel discussion where we'll dig deeper into some of the challenges and opportunities in health innovation. We'll focus on digital solution integration, sustainability in health systems, value-based healthcare, this trendy expression that we all talked about here today a lot, and leadership's role in the driving change. So, speakers, our first question is for each of you, and you have like maybe 2 minutes to answer. The first question is, if you could only choose one, what is the biggest challenge healthcare institutions face when promoting innovation in a sustainable way? Anne, do you want to start?
Yes, I can start. Thank you, Carolina. So they have a lot of challenges, but I would say for me that one of the biggest is the ability to balance short-term costs with long-term gains. So I would say that innovation, for example, and especially when we are speaking about data-driven or value-based healthcare model, often require substantial investment. They have to develop technological platform. They have to do training, information. They have to invest in infrastructure most of the time to have good quality of data. But however, okay, they have to invest. But however, the benefits, and when I'm speaking about the benefit, I'm speaking about the patient outcome, improve patient outcome, and operational efficiencies also if we are using artificial intelligence. And these gains are realized over time. So convincing the stakeholder, and mainly here in Portugal, convincing stakeholder to prioritize these long-term gains over immediate financial pressure remains still today a significant barrier to sustainable innovation. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges is that short-term cost with long-term gains. So they need to have the culture to invest, and it takes time to get the results.
Sure, I agree. And Susanna, you actually work in a healthcare institution, so we are curious to hear your perspective on this.
Thank you. Yes, I'm doing the job. So, in my perspective, the biggest challenge is the integration and harmonization between technology and humanity. So, to be able to integrate the technology with the existing clinical workflows and clinical systems, I think it's the biggest challenge. And for example, I think about the data, the clinical data that we have in different institutions, in different departments, in different buildings, and it's an enormous amount of data, but that we are not regularly able to share and to communicate those data in an efficient way so that the process can be faster or easier. And it's not enough just to put the technology or the latest technology in the field. We need to take care of the human factor and to comprehensively train and support the human factor so that it could use the technology in the best way possible. And so ultimately, that's the biggest challenge, to blend the technology and the human touch so that the innovation in healthcare could happen.
Maybe, if I may add, we have also some topics that we could discuss on this theme, that it's like change management, for example. Because when we talk about technology and humans, we all have this by default mindset of being not that wide open to change, because it's the way we are. It's biology, and maybe you have there some topics too, but I'm not here to answer. So, Rui, what do you think it's this biggest challenge that healthcare institutions face? And if I may add, how can startups collaborate making here the bridge to the second question, how can collaboration between startups, the large healthcare organizations, and the whole ecosystem improve these outcomes and drive this way to this big challenges that we have?
Okay, thank you. I mostly agree with Anne, because the main challenge here is related with the funding, of course. And everything that doesn't attract the adequate funding for the projects, it necessarily brings more constraints. Independently, who is the leader of the process? An institution, a startup, a big company, whatever. The most challenging thing is that sometimes the sources of finance for a certain project, they have no connections between them, and I've seen many projects to be financed, but we know in advance that only one of them can survive because the other ones are not feasible. So there is, a kind of sensation of allocation, unnecessary allocation of financial resources to projects that are not worthy to be supported. There is also this effect, perhaps because there should be, a more sharing information system with everybody, and because the researchers, and mainly the researchers that are making some drug discoveries, for instance, or developing certain medical devices, they are very, very I believe inside of their own research, they don't want to share, what they are doing, with avoiding to make a disclosure of secret, right? Sometimes it's not that the problem. The problem is that sometimes someone reaches a milestone faster, but the other ones are, with the incredible plan B together, they would create value. Okay, and this would be a very, very interesting for the risk exposure decrease, of course, for investors and all the financials. And from the grant side, just to finalize and go into the second question, is that sometimes the grants and the non-dilutive sources of finance, they are also blind in terms of the priorities. Okay, they have lots of priorities that they have to accomplish. Sometimes the money must be deployed anyway from the organizations, and they want to have projects just to execute the programs. They don't see that what is really priority. Sometimes there are splendid projects, they are really needed to have money, they don't have the access because they didn't have time to make an application, which is nonsense. This, okay, and there are others full of money that they don't have, the right means to reach the milestones. So there is a mismatch problem here as well. Regarding the second question, it's also related with this, but I believe that all parts of the ecosystem should work together. And I'm talking about the research centers, universities, the startups themselves, large companies, government, and also we have here some issues that must be solved. A part of the gap of the sourcing of finance that I've told you a minute ago, which, for instance, another things which is reducing the bureaucracy, the constraints to retain talent, for instance. Sometimes, many of the researchers are high quality researchers. They have, the tuition, and they when they don't have enough money, they will find another ways to get their own survivance ways, and the institutions, they are not able to support them, and it's not efficient in terms of talent retainer process. And another way, just to finalize, is that perhaps, just to put the ecosystem working together, is the international sharing experience. And your initiative, Carolina, IT Health, is very important because you have the approach from the European Union. You have a kind of helicopter basis, for what is happening in the EU countries. So you have an extra responsibility so that you can share with your clients, which are the startups, of course, the best cases, the best practices, and of course to tell to someone of them, okay, don't go there. And perhaps, the tenders that are launched and the contests may be adjustable in terms of those priorities. So I believe these are the main issues I would like to share regarding your questions.
Thank you, Rui. That's for sure our way on the shoulder, that helicopter view, and trying to drive it the right way. And what do you have to say about this collaboration that we all need to have to accelerate digitalization and really improve these outcomes that you were mentioning in your presentation, that are value-based and not just outcomes of numbers and quantity?
Yes, I think that, of course, the startups are very well positioned to bring innovation in the healthcare system. But really what I think is that we need on the Portuguese government level, I say we need to have a strategy for the digital transformation of the healthcare system. It cannot be just led to the board management of public hospitals. Everybody is doing what they can with money coming from, I don't know, from some application. We really need to have a strategy, a digital strategy at the level of the country, and not public strategy. I would say public-private strategy. How are we working together? How are we going to use these health data? Because I think it's very important for the country, and we cannot lose the race the international race to use data in health. So I don't know when, but somebody has to decide that we will have a strategy, and what is the strategy, and what are the most important orientation that we need to have in this strategy. What about the interoperability standard? What about a global platform for the patient to have access to their data? What about sharing the information about the prescription, not only in the public sector, but also for the doctors that are working in the private sector? What about all these orientation? What are we going to do regarding value-based healthcare? Do we want to do something or don't we want to do something? What are we going to do in artificial intelligence? What are our plans? Not tomorrow, but within 5 years, within 10 years, we need to have a strategy at the country level. This is very important, and I think that this is something that will for sure accelerate the digital transformation of this country, which is, I would say, at a very low level for the moment. We need that. We need that, really. And it will change everything. You ask a question about the magic wand. I would say, yes, let's have a strategy for the country. And I think it will really change our perspective for the future.
We'll get there to the magic one. Thank you, Anne. I totally agree that we really need a strategy as a country, and we must, and of course we should use the guidelines that we have from Europe, from everywhere, but we have to sit on the table that we have with the people that we have and all the stakeholders and really work on a strategy and execute it, implement.
Yes, because about innovation in healthcare, Susanna has a great example in her hospital in Oporto. So is it good? Yes. It works well? Yes. And perhaps we can apply in whole hospital in the country and have a model to do that. Why do we have Sant Antonio that is doing that and San Juan that is very good with the data and sugar? No. Why don't we have a strategy? And why don't we use the best practices to improve the whole system? This is something that we need to have at the level of the country. That's what I call collective intelligence. We need to have it.
Good expression. I like that. Collective intelligence. Susanna, tell us your perspective on this.
Oh, well, thank you. Again, my perspective is that we really, really need to communicate and share and learn with each other. And the 3 points that you mentioned, the startups, the health organizations, the government, all the 3, we have responsibilities and strengths, but also weaknesses. And if we gather together and work together and communicate with each other, if we collaborate, then we can leverage and optimize the strengths that we have. So, for example, my hospital, we have a lot of patients, a lot of data. We have the operational capacity. We all work and love what we do when working, but we sometimes don't have the cutting edge technologies that a startup is able to have, or the fresh ideas, and also the time and the agility that a startup has. And also, like Rui said, we don't have money. And so the government has to structure a framework, a regulatory framework, especially because of data protection, but also a funding system that supports this kind of initiatives and leads the way. When we were able to do that and to gather and to collaborate, I think that we will lead and achieve innovation using technology.
Great, thank you, Susanna. There's no way I couldn't agree with all of you on these topics. So to wrap up this discussion that I'd like to, well, extend for hours, here's a final question for each of you, and a magic one. That it's, if you had a magic wand, what is the one thing, and you must choose one, okay, you would make happen that would accelerate the change needed? What would you change tomorrow? Like, wake up and it's like magic and it's changed. Who wants to start? Maybe Rui, do you want to start?
I believe it's in the sequence of what we have talked now. I believe it to create a special unit, I don't know, in the government perhaps, just to coordinate, and the words are from Susanna, for instance, and then to coordinate all these players and stakeholders, all right? And I believe that is easy, or even so, if it's not from the government initiative, to be also from the private initiative or from the institutions involved. Someone took the lead, okay, and put everything, everyone working together. So I believe that it's important. Perhaps you, IT Health, could have, this important role so that you can, do this integration in all the articulation of the process between all the involved institutions. Stays here the suggestion. Okay.
Thank you, Rui, for the magic on our side. Susanna?
Well, having that, my wish would be to have a universal interoperability between the health care systems, not only in terms of practical consensus, in terms of clinical reality, but also regarding all of our clinical data, to be able to share them and to understand them between institutions, between the country and with other countries, so that using that communication, we could emerge from a big data and generate insights that could solve the problems, the clinical problems of real patients. Sharing those data and working in big data, for sure, can change lives. That is also being done, of course, and the European Health Data Space promises that, but there's a long road ahead and it takes time. So this dream to have more communication between institutions, more communication between also universities and investigation, so that everything can be shared and the technology works hand by hand with the clinical healthcare professionals, can reach a very good result. When that happens, so the full potential of digital health can be achieved, so that we can really change lives and get the better health for all.
Thank you, Susanna. Anne, what's on your side on the magic wand?
The magic wand, I already said that I think that really to define a strategy at the national level, to include private and public sector, and to define the orientation and a roadmap for the implementation, involving all the stakeholders to be sure that really we get feedback from the bottom to the people who are defining the strategy. And I think it's really something that we miss to that, and that we have to define clearly and to turn it operational. We need to do it now. Otherwise, we will lose really the positioning of Portugal in this race of the data health. And for sure, what it can happen is that we will be able to share data with other countries before we will be able to share data with our patients here in Portugal. And this we cannot accept. I think that we have all to focus on our country. Of course, it's very important to share data with other countries, but this strategy is fundamental to that, to accelerate the digital transformation and the positioning of Portugal.
Unfortunately, I also agree with that vision. We still work in silos, and we must stop doing it. We must work together, because collaboration, it's the word for future, not any other. So I believe we have here topics for a kickoff for this working force that we are talking about. Let's do it. Thank you so much for being here again, Juliana.
Thank you. And before we wrapping up, I invite those in the audience to take a couple of minutes to complete the final quiz. Again, it will take only 2 minutes, and you can find the link in the chat.
Thank you very much, everybody. It was a great discussion.
Thank you, Anne. It was great to have you here.
After the quiz, I have only just a couple of notes to share with you. So to the participants, thank you for attending the webinar, and I hope you have found it informative. To all speakers, once again, thank you for your insights and sharing your experience. And also for the participants, I invite you to follow the Health Cluster Portugal and the EIT Health through our online platforms and social networks to learn more about these and other activities we are promoting. Regarding the Digital Innovation Hub, the JoinHealth PT, if you are an SME, there are several services that you may benefit for. So I invite you also to check this project on our website. Also, you can catch up on all past webinars from this series and other series by visiting the Health Cluster Portugal YouTube channel. Whole previous sessions are available there for you to watch anytime. And stay tuned for the next series of JoinHealth webinar coming in spring 2025. And thank you all. Have a nice week.
Thank you. Have a nice